We are back into open session. We do have a delegation here this evening. And we have not had a delegation in a while, so I'm just going to read the rules so that way everybody remembers what the rules of delegation are. So they filled out a referral request. So and then a decision by the Board of Education is to add an agenda item, which we did. The presentation shall not exceed 5 minutes. Subjects other than policy issues will be generally referred to the administration. Comments shall be limited to issues and not reference to personalities. Presentations must be in good taste, befitting the occasion and the dignity of the board meeting, and a typed copy of an outline of the presentation should be included with this request form. So just wanted to remind everybody that those are the rules. So, okay, all right. Speakers, you're up.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you during delegations this evening. We know you have wanted to hear teachers' thoughts, brainstorms, and preferences during your term as board members, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to continue that open dialogue. We also know you have many difficult decisions and pieces of data to weigh and measure tonight and in the coming month. In an effort to help with your considerations, we wanted to help share the data load. After researching the KSDE website, we were able to find the schools in the state that most closely aligned with the following criteria: grade levels and size of grades in the school. We know you will have an opportunity to look over those numbers more carefully soon. However, we wanted to provide you a list of schools that KSDE regards as similar. As an additional tool, our elementary enrollment is broken down for you as well. And I will give that to you after we're done. What seems to be especially alarming about simply looking at numbers to determine class size is that there are several students with significant needs. For example, let's say that there was a class of 20 students. Now let's attempt to weight the needs of that class in much the same way that the state has weighted funding. If there are 20 students in the class, but 5 of those students have special education needs, it would be prudent to weight their needs, counting them as 2 students rather than just 1. That class of 20 now becomes a class of 25 due to weighted needs. Let's also pretend that that same class has 4 MTSS students who also have strong needs, but perhaps not quite as strong. We might weigh their needs as 1.5 students. That would add an additional 2 students to the class. That would increase the class size to 27 students in a weighted system. That count of 20 just turned into 27 and did not even include emotional needs of students or age as we attend to the whole child. In order to best meet the needs of our students, we must continue to retain staff. Staff attraction and retention seems to be an area that could require additional focus at the moment. Our looming concern is that if priority is not put on staff retention, we will move towards a transient teacher population, meaning we may fill vacant district positions for a year or 2, but those positions will likely become a revolving door rather than retaining long-term quality staff members or attracting staff members who intend to have longevity in the district. In an attempt to be completely transparent, teachers are given a confidential survey. 50% of the teachers at the elementary school are actively seeking a position in another district. We say this not at all to add stress to anyone's plates, but because as you work to make such difficult decisions, you should have all the information you possibly can. As you know, many of us had a hand in attaining the prestigious National Blue Ribbon Award. Our test scores were high, our staff was outstanding, and we had people and resources in place to achieve success. We had 2 teachers per grade level. We had an at-risk coordinator and a para. We had a Title I teacher and paras, and our MTSS structure followed a much more stringent protocol. With these educators, our LES students had small reading and small math groups, as well as tutoring for reading and math in primary and upper elementary grades. We also had curriculum at the time that was updated in line to the standards. We cannot express enough how grateful we are for the opportunity to use ESSER II funding to purchase curriculum. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to explore curriculum materials and find the very best for our students. As you know, updated curriculum coupled with training staff will help greatly as we prepare for the upcoming year. If teacher attrition is deemed the only way to solve our financial problems, it is important to note the risk associated with it. It was stated at the last board meeting that our test scores have declined. While we would like to see a bit more data regarding which test scores were discussed, and also prefer to dig deeper to explain the growth model which we feel our test scores do show, The bottom line is that, as always, our staff seeks excellence. We're not sure that decreasing the amount of teachers' staff is an effective way to increase achievement and therefore excellence. Please know that we are also not suggesting anyone in this room thinks that either. We would also like to note that the very best of curriculums cannot be the only fix as we step toward attaining the excellence we desire. Curriculum is only as good as the people you have carrying it out and their ability to collaborate with one another. It would be very much the same as driving a brand new car on a foggy night. If the driver can see out the driver's side of the car and the passenger can see out the passenger side of the car, they are much more likely to see a group of deer ready to cross in front of them. In contrast, if the passenger, that fellow staff member, is not present, it's likely a collision with the deer will happen, and unfortunately the brand new car, the curriculum, didn't help us avoid the collision. It may have provided better headlights than our old car, but what we still really needed was a co-pilot. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to continue an open dialogue regarding district needs. We truly know you have no easy decisions ahead of you. Our hope tonight is that you feel moved to make a motion to advertise for positions at the elementary school and explore other options for funding. We welcome any further discussions you would like to have with us. We all have USD 298's best interests at heart. Lastly, we hope the spirit of our discussion this evening comes across as kind and helpful as it was meant to be. Again, thank you for your time and volunteerism as board members.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next, we have the consent agenda, and that includes the minutes of March 8th. So do I have a motion for the consent agenda approval? Thank you, TJ.
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Okay, motion by TJ, seconded by John to approve the items listed on the consent agenda consisting of approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 8th, 2021, approve payment of the bills, approve the treasurer's report, approve the clerk's report, and approve KASB membership renewal, including the season pass, and the KASB Legal Assistance Fund for the 21-22 school year. All of them. So, and is there any discussion? All in favor?
She said something.
Agree?
She said aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, 6-0. All right, next we have the item that we amended the agenda for was the rec committee. We have Kelly Schneider has offered to accept that position as a representative. So do I have a motion?
I move to appoint Kelly Schneider to represent USD 298 on the rec board.
Thank you, Deb.
I'll second that.
Second by TJ. Motion by Deb, second by TJ, my letters correctly, to accept Kelly Schneider as our representative for the school board for the rec commission. So, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Okay, next, we have a track update. John.
All right. So, first of all, I think it's probably important for me to just say in general that as a group of people trying to raise money, while this may seem obvious, I think it's better to say it out loud. We're not trying to do anything separate from the school. We want to do what the district and the administration and the leadership wants. That may seem like Captain Obvious to everyone, but sometimes it feels like stuff like that should just be said out loud. So now, as I understand it, Scott and Nikki met with a guy from Track Renovations in Pittsburgh, Kansas, or talked to him about the track issues. And So there was a couple other guys that came out earlier to provide bids on, initially we thought it'd be great to rebuild that thing from the ground up. And then when we found out it was gonna cost $750,000 to $1 million, it became very discouraging. And I'm not gonna lie, I was defeated at that point. I actually thought, what's gonna happen to that facility out there? So, Track Renovations from Pittsburgh, Kansas, and as I understand it, this was actually the company that did the overlay the last time, however many years ago. I think it was at least 15 years ago. Apparently they could come in and do an overlay that'll last about 8 to 10 years for in the $150,000 range is what I understand. I actually tried to call him today and he didn't return my calls, but I'm sure it's a very busy time of year for him to be checking out facilities and things like that. I'm very optimistic about that number. I feel a lot better about that situation and that scenario. Now, I remember I was active in fundraising when we did the overlay 15 years ago or whatever it was. And one question mark I have about it is that I'm nearly certain there was a service contract. And I actually remember in that process, I feel like the board canceled the service contract as a cost-saving measure at that time. Now, we could go back and check all that out. But I do wonder if there is any kind of option where you can add longevity with some type of a service contract, or kind of what that looks like going forward. But these are all questions that we can look at down the road. So in short, $150,000 as a relatively short-term solution seems much more realistic right now than $750,000 to $1 million as perhaps a much longer-term situation, at least for what I feel the economic climate is and the size of community that we live in. So what I've done so far is, just today I got all my current confirmations for a fundraising committee. I don't know, I guess I don't know if I'm the self-appointed chair or whatever, they can vote me out if they want to, but Tracy Hamilton, Becky Cheney, Jessica Koveman, and Jim Metz will be the 5, we'll call them voting members of the fundraising committee. Now, I think everybody understands that this is going to be a community-wide effort, and there's literally a dozen people that have come out and said they want to do this and do that, including people that don't even live in our community. I've got a guy that works with some of our long-distance runners who wants to do a fundraising video for us. So there's a lot of people that want to participate. I actually hope to come in and say, hey, you know what? I've got $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever committed. Well, I can only tell you that I have $1,500 already. And there's kind of I've essentially my career has been fundraising, and there's kind of a rule that is if it's not in the bank, you don't really have it yet. But these two, I have a $1,000 commitment and a $500 commitment. I can assure you that they're firm, and so it's a start. It's a place to start. So I have 2 requests of the board this evening. The first thing is, so Tracy and I have met and talked a little bit, and if you're not familiar with Tracy, it's Sharon and Bob, the late Bob Hamilton's daughter, and she's a longtime sports writer. She is a columnist for the Washington Post, and previously she was the deputy sports editor for the Detroit Free Press. At one point, she was the highest ranking female sports writer in the country. It's a pretty prestigious career that she's enjoyed, and recently she's come back home and she's also working at the Lincoln County Historical Society, and she's very passionate about this project, and she's very excited about it. And she and I talked, and there's some of that, you have some of that discussion about, do we need a separate account for this project, or what's the best way to set up the money handling? Well, what we believe is that we would like the idea of just having the checks be made to USD 298, and then it say Track Renovation Project. But we would like to set up our own P.O. box, receive the checks at that P.O. box, and then bring them in once a month. That way, we're going to have people on the committee, we may have people in the community that are going to be out there doing fundraising, and we can keep track of a list of, these are all the people, John was responsible for calling these people, and Deb was responsible for calling these people, and we got their checks so that we're not calling back and asking them, hey, have you given yet, you know, and make us look like we don't know what we're doing. That way we can also get thank yous out immediately, and then of course, we just have immediate access to where we stand fundraising wise, and can keep a running total going from month to month. So, I think I need the board's permission to, you know, essentially it will be a USD 298 track fundraising committee PO box, and we will ask that the checks be made out to USD 298 with track renovation project in the memo line. So that's one thing to consider, and then the second thing to consider is we'd like to apply for some grants on the district's behalf. Very specifically right now, the Post Rock Community Foundation, which I'm actually on the board of, so I'll have to recuse myself from that process, but, and then the Wind Economic Benefit Fund, both of those grant deadlines are coming up pretty quick. And I think the way that it should go is, we'll do all the grant paperwork and we'll bring it in for Mr. Crenshaw to sign. I think essentially, or someone within the district that should be that person. So, please consider those two options, and feel free to ask me any questions about the process. We will have a committee meeting we're gonna have a lunch committee meeting on Thursday, and there'll be a whole bunch of things that we do as far as rolling out press releases and Facebook. You know, I don't know whether we're gonna launch a Facebook page specific to it, or exactly what the process will be a little bit about that. I think I need to talk maybe a little bit to Brenda about how, you know, the best way to handle that is, and some of those kind of things. There's a lot of details to be ironed out, but that's where we stand at today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So your meeting is Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
Would the board feel comfortable giving the okay for that PO box to track funds and also to begin grant writing?
Absolutely.
Is that okay with our budget to have an account set up specifically for that?
Well, it would just be mailed to that PO box when it comes here. It would go into gifts and grants, just like our other gifts that have been designated for a particular project, whether that was playground or curriculum or anything else. So it would go into the gifts and grants account once you approved it at a board meeting with that designation that it couldn't be spent on anything else.
Okay. Do we have to have a motion for that, or just?
I think it was, I have a question.
Okay.
Not, is that just an okay blanket consent, or? Brandon, it's easier for you.
It doesn't matter, it's whatever. I would think that a consensus of the board would work for that to get started, but it's up to you guys.
We're not spending
Okay.
any here.
Yeah, that's just okay to do it that way. Everybody agrees? Bree?
Three.
She's opposed.
For me.
Okay, all right. Good deal. Whew.
Any questions about anything? I mean, obviously, we'll come back and give regular updates, or, you know, whether it be I send a report on a regular basis or that kind of thing, but if you don't have anything to ask me, I'm gonna leave.
Sounds like a good plan. John.
All right, thanks. See.
Still find 148.5.
That's right.
Thanks.
Write a check. Okay, very good. Next, we have a donation to Lincoln Elementary School for $500 from the Special Prosecutor Fund for Lincoln County.
I move to accept it.
Thank you, David.
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. Motion by David, seconded by Deb, that USD 298 Board of Education approve the donation to Lincoln Elementary School for building use in the amount of $500 from the Special Prosecutor Fund, Lincoln County, Kansas. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you. Next, we have early release for the track meets on April 29th and May 7th. Do you want to?
Mrs. Walter's gonna share that plan.
Okay. I was wondering who that was in that. Go ahead.
Oh, she's.
Yeah.
So I had some things I just wanted to one is just kind of an outline of what, two things.
Here, I'll take one.
The first one is kind of the plan. The second one is just, there were some questions about if we really needed that many people to work the track meet. And so I printed off the events and how many adults need to work them. If you look at this spreadsheet, in each event, the top numbers in like is dark and then the bottom ones are lighter. Those would just be students, student helpers. So like boys long jump, the dark one, that's the adult. We need 1 adult and 3 students. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you count all of those up, it's about 33 adults to work. So on the front page, we are asking, well, we have the track meets on the 29th and the 7th. We're asking for an early release of 12:30 so that the junior high track meet can start at 1:30. They take longer, they're longer track meets because they have boys and girls, 7th grade and boys and girls 8th grade, so there's just a lot of events that you have to go through. What we're asking for is a bus and a driver to transport the student helpers, which the high school track team will help at the junior high track meet, and the junior high tracksters will help at the high school track meet. And then if staff who works to and from. So just to kind of give you an outline of what we are looking for. The school gets out at 12:30, load buses, head over. The goal is to be there by 1, if we can, so that the track meet can start at 1:30, so everybody can get to their places and report to help with the field event. We ask that they finish their field event before they leave, even if it's after 3:45. So that'll be field events from 12:30 or 1:30 to 3:45. And then from 3:45 to the end of the track meet, those staff members who stay can be compensated for part of the workday at the end of the school year. They get to choose. So for the high school track meet on the May 7th, we cannot start before 3 o'clock. Just because high school track meets, you can only have, is it 2 all-day track meets, and they're already scheduled for 2. So we have to start at 3. So we're asking for an early release of 2 o'clock to allow travel time to get over there with a bus and a driver. So generally, I think we start the running events at 5, so field events will go from about 2 to 5, approximately, depending on how long it takes. And then from 5 o'clock to the end, those who stay can be compensated for part of the school, the work day at the end of the school year. So staff will check in once they get there with me, and I will check times when they leave, so I know how much time they worked outside of the contract day. And then they will choose, and I will send I'll send all that information to the board, but I was thinking it today, once I know how much time they worked outside of their contract day, that they would sign like a leave request with whichever day they choose, and then they would mark it as compensated leave, not activity, not any of the other leaves. And it's really, there's not an option for that, but we can write that in there. So that way we can send that to the board office, and they're aware of who's working what days and what days they're not working. And if that's not gonna work, that's fine, we can do whatever. But I will be the one in charge of making sure, or documenting when they get there and when they leave. Is there any questions on what we're asking for?
Mrs. Walter,
Yes.
can I add something to this? That if the board does approve that April 29th date and a dismissal time at 12:30, it would be in our best interest not to have any preschool at all that day. We've talked about this before, but preschool hours have to match. And we can rerun those numbers tomorrow with the days that we missed in February, but we should still be fine if we take out April 29th.
So we would early dismiss and have no preschool on the 29th?
Yes.
Okay, makes sense.
Is there no preschool on the 7th?
No, there's not. They're doing assessments that day.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, yes.
Are teachers going to be required to go to these track meets?
Well, I don't know if we're asking that you go and help, because we need help. I guess if you don't go, then that's up to your building principal. I'm gonna ask my staff to go, because I won't be there to monitor what happens when they're not there, or when they are there and I'm not there. So, I don't know, we can do that or not, I'm not sure. We need to know sooner than later who wants to help and who will help, because if we don't get help from our staff members, then we have to ask community members to take time off of work to go over and help.
I would be willing to help too, because I've helped in the past and enjoyed doing it, and
I saw your name.
okay.
I just haven't contacted you.
We just need to know how many people are available to do that, and if they don't go, then they will, I guess you'll just work in your buildings. I don't know what I would do with my staff, though.
I'm not trying to be obnoxious or anything, I'm just saying that I know there's some people that have no experience whatsoever with track and don't feel comfortable running an event. I'm just saying that, I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, I'm just,
Well, there will be concession stand,
We need help with that.
yeah, always.
Yeah, always.
And if we don't, you know, if we don't have enough student workers, there are things you can do at field events besides running the field event, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So you can help, you can be an assistant.
Or run sheets up to the
Exactly.
press box.
Yeah. It takes a village to do a track meet.
It's a lot to run a track meet.
There's a lot
Especially
going
when it's
on.
not here in our
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see us all working together and helping out. Just for the kids.
Right.
Because without that, they wouldn't be having the track meets, or Lincoln would not be having a track meet. So. Okay.
Okay.
Right, any other, no questions?
No,
Okay.
looks good.
All right,
Thank you.
so we need to add, no preschool, no pre-K on that. This one,
Do you want a motion for
okay,
that?
yes, I need a motion,
Okay,
please.
I move that we allow early release for the track meets on April 29th and May 7th, and that on April 29th, we have no preschool all day.
Thanks, Dan.
I'll second
Thank you, TJ. Okay, motion by Deb, second by TJ, that USD 298 Board of Education approve the early dismissal for students on April 29th, 2021 at 12:30 PM. And there will be no preschool on that day. And May 7th, 2021 at 2 PM. And approve the early release of staff at the end of the school year for the time worked at the April 29th, 21 and April 7th, 21 track meets held at Teskett. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Thank you. Okay, use of facilities is the next topic. I know we kind of discussed that a little bit last time. Mr. Crenshaw, do you want to
We just,
refresh everybody's?
this was postponed till this meeting, so you guys could have a chance to think about it. We have a couple of options. We can keep the facilities off limits to outside entities. We can open it up to all entities, both personal that come in and use the gym and the weight room and groups, or we could open it to one or the other of those. I do have some group requests on my desk that I've just been holding on to until we get a direction from the board on what you want to do with the facilities.
I think last time part of the discussion was having to go in and sanitize after somebody or something's been used. It's one of the big topics of concern there. So if somebody would go in on, say, Sunday evening and play basketball until 10, we would have to have people go in and sanitize after they're done to be ready for the school day the next day.
And we do have staff that reports early, and the schedule could just be massaged a little bit to where they would know if that they needed to switch that sanitation routine so everything had a chance to dry before students arrived.
I was curious too whether, I guess, I don't know how long we're gonna do COVID protocol or how long we're gonna have to clean, but if this is an ongoing thing and it seems to be helping with the overall health of our buildings, but possibly figuring out how we can clean and allow the use of the facilities is probably something we need to do, because I assume moving forward we're not just gonna give up all the cleaning that we've done, I don't think, overnight, so, and I would like to see it definitely for next year, and I would like to see us go back to using them because the community helps support our buildings and do things, and I think if we can help support their health somehow. There's currently no other place in town to go work out or do something, so it would be nice to.
I would like to see us remain this way till the end of school, just out of respect for our janitors and everybody that's been working their tails off, keeping the school as clean as possible and open. I would like to have it open, yes, but after we're done with this year's, how I'd see it.
The events that you have that have requests, are they during the school year or after the school year is over?
The ones after I'm not worried about. There's some that kind of bridge both, right before and then after.
I agree with David too. That's something I brought up in the last meeting too. Our staff has been overworked, been working hard, done a tremendous job as far as teachers, faculty, housekeeping, and keeping it clean, keeping COVID out of the schools. And we just talked in a few more weeks and we're out. So to me, I hate to see it open up too soon. When the school's out, they got probably more time. They'll clean, not worry about everything else. Plus, we also have seen, I guess according to county health, I don't know if it's on the website, there's been a few more cases coming into the community. So,
I feel that we can wait until the end of school year, because where I'm thinking, at least get our kiddos finished up with school.
I was kind of hoping we could at least maybe like the community events that people wanted to, that we could schedule. If we could kind of accommodate some of those.
Yeah, and that's what I'm curious, whether we could allow like a weekend group or something to where if you wanted to do something on a Saturday, you could do that. Not allow, we could not allow the community access until school's over, like the weight room and the gym. I just think that we need to, if somebody needs that space or that big an area, as a school, we are one of the few places in the community big enough to hold bigger events. And taxpayers fund our buildings, I think it's.
Especially with something that was scheduled, that we knew it's gonna be on the 28th and that's the day, and then they would be able to work around that. I agree about the community access to the way, maybe looking off, but.
Any particular events you're thinking of?
Well, the dance thing, and she had asked if they could practice that week, the last week of school, and then have that Saturday. That was a request that I had been asked if we could try and work towards, which it's after school, so I guess I'm curious what we're gonna consider school out, whether we can
When's the line?
call it the 20th or whatever I think the kids' track meets the 17th, so is that when the field days are, May 17th?
We'll still be in school through May the 20th, so
Through May the 20th.
it is important to know, if you're talking about having the dance recital in my building as it traditionally has been,
Yes, I am.
in the stage is still gonna be our lunchroom through that time. And I know in the past, they've used it 2 days ahead of time in order to get all the decorations up. So that's gonna divert us for a whole week for lunch. And I know it's May and you can go outside, but it's also Kansas and unpredictable weather. And it doesn't always work to be outside to eat lunch. And I don't have any other spaces to eat lunch.
Well, could we slide the desks off or move them just a little bit, or is it, if they moved them out and put them back when they were done? I think it's just,
I guess what I'm getting at, John, is if you decorate for a dance recital, it's kind of like decorating for prom. There are larger decorations that are gonna go up 2 days before.
and it takes more time, which would be nice to give them the time to do it.
But moving desks out and up every day for 3 class periods is gonna be a lot on, 3 lunch workers that we have. And one of those is myself and 2 other lunch workers that are running meals up in between the stage and the gym floor. I'm not opposed to having it. One of the things when we looked at getting those post-rock grants was we would have a usable gym and stage, and our gym and stage is one of the largest meeting spaces in the whole county, and that's a wonderful thing. And we'd like to be able to use that for the whole community, but is there any way we could push that off 1 week? And once we're out of school, it's not a workable lunchroom anymore, now it goes back to being a stage.
Yes. Well, that date's been set for 2 months, I think. She's had it set and put out, I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I thought that was the date she had picked. I guess Tinley eats on the stage, the fourth grade eats on the stage, and she said 3 or 4 times they've eaten in their classroom, so I thought there was a possibility they could probably last 3 days of school. It's probably gonna be sack lunch or something anyway, so they might be able to eat in their classroom for those days, but there's more than just fourth grade, so I guess that's how I feel.
I'd like to say something real quick if nobody else is talking.
Go ahead, Brittany.
Okay, my daughter is not in dance anymore, but she used to be, and so I've attended those dance recitals a couple times. And I don't really remember that there would be any complications on the stage as far as decorating, like directly on the space where the desks are setting. Because I did actually go into the grade school and looked at that stage space recently to get an idea for some of these things. It's more the background that I think they decorate, and I'm thinking after seeing that space, it wouldn't be that big of a deal for them to go in and just decorate that backdrop area that's the background for the dancers, and then when it's time to actually practice, they can move things out to the side or just move it that night for the dance recital. I would just like to see us be able to allow groups to schedule a time to use the space, and then when we get to the time period that school is actually out, that we have an opportunity for community access to open back up.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'd like to-
CJ.
Just like to hear too, I know last month we had this meeting, we had a discussion as far as how it's affecting it and what our administrative team think about it. And I guess one thing I'd like to hear too is what Mrs. Walker thinks about her school and those facilities and how her staff's ability to clean. Because I think we need to respect the administration of the school and what their recommendations are.
As far as community access, right now, having them change schedules to clean would be, if we still require them to do the things that they're doing right now, that would be difficult. Because as my morning person right now already is scrambling to get everything done before teachers start showing up or students start showing up. So as far as community access, doing that every night, I think would be difficult. Scheduled events, I think that would be easier because then you can schedule cleaning. If you knew that this event was going to be there, then you can let the janitor know that this needs to be cleaned before anybody else can be in there, kind of thing. So I think scheduled events would be easier than it would be for community access at this point.
And who would determine what scheduled event would be approved and would not approved?
I think that would be Scott.
Those request forms come into the district office.
Any other questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to the facilities use or not?
I'll make a motion that we allow groups after May 1st, as long as they are scheduled, and it'll be under Scott's discretion as to who is allowed. When school is out, we could return to open community access for Are you okay with that motion, or?
Oh, yeah, I was just signing, sorry.
Okay, I was just curious.
Response.
Okay.
I would second that.
So to clarify, the gym and the weight room would off limits until school is out.
Okay, but you said May 1st.
For groups. So like community access to cards and stuff, so only people that, I guess they can use them, but they would have to schedule a week, can we say a weekend event? Is that possible?
Well, you said the gym and the weight room were off limits. I mean, you're saying they're going to use the commons?
Okay,
See what I'm saying? I
Yes,
wanna make sure
I
I'm
understand.
understanding correctly in my motion, so that's all I'm,
okay.
or in your motion. I
So
just
is
wanna
it
make
just
sure I was aware.
Individual nightly access will not be allowed until after school is out. Is that better? Our facilities would be available to a group if they wanted on a weekend.
How about we readjust that?
Okay.
How about we not, so you're kind of saying after school's out, so, why don't we just do part of the motion?
Okay. Just allow
Okay.
groups.
And then address the community access
Yeah.
after school's out?
Okay.
Okay.
What was that again? I didn't
Okay.
hear what David said.
So,
I'll withdraw that motion
Okay.
because it's jumbled in.
nope, that's okay.
Speaking of ones, if we can do
Thank you, John. All right, John, you have another motion for us.
Okay, I would move that starting May 1st, we would allow groups to have a scheduled event that could be planned for cleaning and sanitation in our facilities, high school and grade school. And no, I guess that's groups. Scheduled events.
Group schedule events. Okay, so group scheduled events will be allowed May 1st.
Yes. Do you want that we will reevaluate open community access at our, this is our April meeting, our May meeting, or our June meeting? What do you think?
Probably both,
Okay, it'll be reevaluated again in both meetings, so.
next meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bree. Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, all right. Right. Motion by John, seconded by Bree, that we allow group access to both buildings effective May 1st, as long as they have approved and are scheduled. Okay. And we will reevaluate the open community access to everybody next meeting.
Next meeting,
Okay.
sounds good.
Is that clear? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4 opposed, 2, 4 to 2. All right. Thank you. Whew. Moving on, now we have athletic activities handbook. Mr. Crenshaw?
In your packet, there's a copy of the proposed Lincoln Junior Senior High School Athletics and Activities Coach, Student, Parent, and Spectator Handbook. This was compiled at the junior, senior high, and it's lengthy, so this is information only. If the administrators or AD or administrator or AD want to make any comments on it, now would be a good time. Otherwise, we just need to digest this, and it will come up as an action item at a later date.
This seems fairly up to date, has it, like,
We never had one before,
okay,
and in my 2 years as athletic director, we just have had a few things that have came up, and we went to the student handbook, and it's not in there, or we went to the teacher handbook, which does not really go with the coaches. And so Mrs. Walter and myself had to kind of just make our best judgment, and this kind of just gives us some better guidance when issues arise.
And it's uniform. Right now, every coach has a different policy, and some are similar and some are not, so it's just kind of nice to have one uniform policy that all coaches and athletes have to follow.
I thought it was very good, it
Yeah.
And I will tell you, the draft was sent to KASB legal team, and they thoroughly vetted it to make sure it wasn't conflicting with any other existing policy that we have as far as board policy. And then they made some edits and suggested changes, and this is the clean copy after Mrs. Flynn had made those suggested changes. So this is KSB approved
I thought it was good.
for now.
This, this does give us some grounds if they sign this to go back and actually have some meat to it.
Yep.
Okay, I like it.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, we have assignment of Senate Bill 40, hearing officer / committee.
Yes, one of the requirements of Senate Bill 40 is that we have either a hearing officer or a hearing committee assigned, and we need to pass a resolution. So my conversation with KSB Legal again was, can we identify the Board of Education as the hearing committee with the expectation that that committee would not exceed 3, so then it doesn't become a board member. And my thought behind that was, with everybody's busy schedules, rather than trying to assemble all 7, we can just, whoever's available, the hearing requirement is within 72 hours, and I know that for people who are out of town or occupied somewhat in the summertime, that could be a challenge. And they said that we could structure it as the Board of Education, not to exceed 3 members at a given hearing. After such a hearing, as a result of Senate Bill 40, there does need to be a board decision, so within 7 days, then we could schedule a special board meeting to address any concerns. So I have the resolution here, and if it's approved by the board, we can just get this taken care of for the hearing committee for 2021. And this will become an annual resolution.
I move we go with what was recommended there.
David?
I'll second that.
Thank you, DJ. Do I need to read that in the motion? Do I need to read that whole resolution on it?
You need to read this, and that covers that.
Okay, all right. I know sometimes we've had to read the resolutions, I just want to cover that, so. Okay, motion by David, seconded by TJ, that USD 298 Board of Education appoint USD 298 Board of Education as the hearing committee as required by Senate Bill 40, with understanding that only 3 board members will be present at any hearing per resolution number 42101. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. Okay, next we have 3-year-old preschool.
Do you guys mind if I come up? I can't see over this podium, so I think it's,
Sure.
I'll just come and sit up here, if that's all right. So we're very lucky that Mrs. Ringler's here tonight, and she can speak on this as well. Just to refresh your memory from the March meeting, we had discussed that when we had proposed the idea, and it was passed last month, of the early release model, it creates a problem in 4-year-old preschool. We do receive half-time funding, at-risk funding, for 4-year-olds in the state of Kansas. With that, our morning preschool and our afternoon preschool have to have a set amount of hours. It leads us into that problem. So in looking at ways to solve that problem, balance those hours out, and still have the required amount of hours, we also began looking at our 3-year-old preschool model, which we don't have. We had talked about this before. I went ahead and did the KSDE application for our 4-year-old at risk. That was due on April the 2nd at 5 p.m., so I had to go ahead and get that done. Part of that application this year asked districts specifically how you are serving your 3-year-old at-risk preschool students. And if you're not, why did you not do that? And if you're not, who are they being picked up and served by within your community? And I had to answer that we don't have anyone serving them in our community. So those are things to think about. We've talked about this before, that one of the Kansas CAN objectives is kindergarten readiness and having students 5 years old by the time they start preschool. And this would be a way that we could go ahead and ensure that. So in working with Mrs. Ringler and Mrs. Hahn, Mrs. Graybon, and Mrs. Isabel, and that would be our special ed teacher for the early childhood, plus our 2 speech paths, and Mrs. Ringler as well, we started throwing about some different ideas for 3-year-olds, and Mrs. Ringler, feel free to chime in. So what we looked at was every Wednesday morning, 2.5 hours, and that would start after the regular start period, and that would allow for students, if it's determined by an IEP team that they need transportation, and that is always an IEP decision, then they would receive transportation. And that's not transportation on a bus, that would be transportation that we would have a para pick them up in a Traverse or the new white van that we have at the school. And then from there, it would only be for 3-year-olds, once a week, Wednesday mornings, 2.5 hours, a play-based social group that really focuses on school readiness and the social part of school readiness. So as Mrs. Ringler said, they'll do colors and shapes and counting, nursery rhymes, all of those things you would associate with preschool, but it'll really be a play-based model, not necessarily an academic-based model, because I know that was a concern. There would be no fee for parents, because we're not boring any cost to have this program. There would be no supplies needed by parents. Traditional school supplies, let me add that. We could charge a milk fee, because we would have a milk, and then as they do in 4-year-old preschool, all parents are asked to bring a snack. That snack is shared by everybody. And under that model of 3-year-old preschool, it would be solving the problem because we're the only district in the cooperative that doesn't service 3-year-olds at all. Sylvan down the road has been servicing them, and according to Mr. Steckline, that model's been going very well. They service their 3-year-olds on Fridays. So Monday through Thursday, their 4-year-olds come in, their 3-year-olds come in on Friday. We just don't have that luxury because we do have that Wednesday day we have to look at. And then for our 4-year-olds, as we talked about, they would come in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We would add 30 minutes onto their day, and they would have their 465 hours that they're required to have. Is there any questions I can answer on that, or Mrs. Ringler could share?
Explained it very well.
Transportation, then they would, if they didn't have an eye, so either their parents will bring them or we'll have to go get them, or how will?
We would ask that parents transport them. I would say this, for a district, IEP transportation is always borne on the cost of the district. It doesn't go
Yes.
from the co-op. So, if a student were being picked up for IEP services and the bus happened to be going by their house, or I'm sorry, the van happened to be going by their house, and their parent also needed transportation, I think that would be a discussion we could have at the district level. Could we also have that student come on the van as well?
But typically their parents will probably bring them in.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're only looking at the most, 12 students. As of right now, I think we were at 8. And that would be open to all 3-year-old students that live in the district as of August 31st, 3 years old.
All 3-year-olds and not just
All
we
3-year-olds.
discussed last time.
They'd only take 12, it was just.
12 would be the max that we would take. As of right now, we have 8 that have expressed interest. All 3-year-olds could benefit from other peer models. That's a proven system of young students that maybe are achieving those milestones can benefit their peers.
And I would only chime in to say, the more effort we put into getting kids ready for kindergarten, the better groundwork and foundation they're gonna have to be successful. There's a reason all these other districts have 3-year-old programs, because they're finding success in doing that. It's a shift, it's a change, but I really believe this would be a positive change.
And years of research will tell you the very best return on investment dollars. You can get an education, come at the early childhood level. That's why so much money is focused there.
Bree, did you have any questions?
No, I don't. I just thank Mrs. Schmidt for explaining everything so well. I think it's a good opportunity for our district.
Thank you. Right. And now a motion.
I move that we approve the 3-year-old preschool program as position.
Thank you, Deb. And a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, John. Okay, motion by Deb, seconded by John, the USD 298 Board of Education approved hosting a 3-year-old preschool program each Wednesday with 4-year-old preschool being held on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. This is for the 21-22 school year. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Okay, LOB Authority. Discussed that a little bit last time, Mr. Crenshaw?
Yeah, this is just a follow-up to our discussion last time with that slideshow that I presented to you. Just showing you areas where we have opportunities, if you will, authority, if you will, however you want to look at it, to raise some of the revenues for the district. And I'll share in my superintendent report, but I will tell you, with some of the bills that are before the House and the Senate now and how this thing's going to shake out, we are looking at approximately about a potential worst-case scenario of about $192,000 in lost funding, and I'll explain some of that a little bit later. But for the process to take place, I need to know what direction we need to move, like tonight. Because there is a process that we have to go through to publish such an intent, to allow a certain time frame prior to that being able to be authorized. So there is no pressure either way. It was just an option that I presented. I need to know where to go with it.
We are currently at 30%.
30%.
Up to 33 is the max, correct?
Yes.
You could go to 31 this year without us doing anything, because it's.
If the statewide average comes out to be 31, and that's what they're predicting, then we could go to 31.
That would get us 30,000?
Approximately, about a third of that 30, or that 3% increase, which was 92.
Yeah. So we figured evaluation was like 3 million for an acre, whatever. I don't know.
And of course, a lot of that depends on what county valuation comes back at. It's been on the upswing for the last 3 years. I don't know if it will continue to grow, flatline, or decrease.
Any other questions for Mr. Crenshaw? Any discussion? It's never easy raising anything. Never easy. Do we want to make a motion to do anything with that? If we don't make a motion, it just stays at 30 and we go on down the road, correct?
And if the statewide average goes up, we'll match that, the 30.
Even though we didn't raise it to 31, if it went up to 31,
We
we could
match the
automatically match
statewide.
We can match the statewide average, but no action, but in order to go beyond that, we have to. It concerns me. I mean, I know that we need to raise the additional tax dollars, but it concerns me burden it will put on people to go that high. You know, I'm comfortable with going maybe to the statewide average, but going above that, I worry about the burden that it's gonna put on some of our taxpayers.
Yep.
But I know we need to raise somewhere, or account for that loss in some way, but.
Sure.
Don't fret, I will figure it out.
And a little magic wand over here, between.
Only one of us should lose sleep over this.
Yeah.
It's hard because it won't put that much of a burden on me, but there are a lot of taxpayers that it's gonna put an enormous burden on, enormous.
Just exactly, I agree.
And if the statewide average goes to 31, that's a move.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, but it's not a huge move.
So there's $30,000 or better, so. And your numbers are worst case scenario, so
Absolutely.
hopefully.
Yep.
We can,
Hopefully we won't be there.
The legislature has adjourned, and we have to wait for them to come back and kind of ram some stuff through and see where the dust settles.
what are all the dates they pushed back? Does that have to do somewhat with this?
That has to do with the revenue neutral bill, that if we're gonna exceed the county's revenue neutral rate, we have to publish again, and they had originally made those dates prior to when most districts even have their budgets complete, let alone know if they need to publish and do this. So that bill just pushed all those dates back to a more reasonable time to give schools a chance to get their budgets done and see where they sit.
Something just died? Are you just letting it stay at the 30% and move on down the road?
I
We
think
don't
so,
have the extra
statewide
tax
average,
burden unless,
unless the statewide average goes up, I think. We can have that discussion, but I have a feeling there's not support to go to 33.
I can do 33, 31, I can probably swallow, but just, again, it's the
burden.
It's the tax, you know, it's like, you said, it wouldn't affect me very much at all, but other people, it would affect a lot, and it's their, you know, you have to have that, you have to have that
Good
big
reason
full
for
word,
how we're gonna do that.
you know, that they,
Possibly start in January if we're thinking we're gonna do it, and explain why we need it, and try to get some support, like for next year, if we thought we were gonna do that, to try and. I would hate to ram it through right now just at the deadline, just because we thought we needed to.
I would hope that you will support it, bring it to the statewide average if we went up this round. But, yeah, the 33 would be.
okay, all right. Guess we will move on then. Principals report, Mrs. Schmidt.
The only thing I have to add is, because parent-teacher conferences were happening, the night of our last meeting was, we had 95% parental support for our parent-teacher conferences in March. So that is a wonderful thing, and we continue to have wonderfully supportive parents at LES.
Thank you.
That is all I have.
Any other questions for Mrs. Schmidt? Ms. Bree? Did you see her? Oh, sorry, I thought you said something. Must have lost her. We're still okay, we still have a form, so we're still good. Okay, Mrs. Walter.
The only thing I would like to add is, prom went off without much of a hitch on Saturday, and it was really great to see the kids there and had a good time. They needed, after the year that we've had, they needed the release, and it was really great, so it turned out really well. that's all I really wanted to say.
I'm glad everybody had a good time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any questions for Mrs. Walter? Okay, Mr. Crenshaw, you're up again.
Ready?
She's still there. She's there.
Can you hear me, Bree?
Yes, I can.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. The first thing that I thought, Patty and I were talking about, and as I've been here longer and longer, this was a board-approved communication model, if you will, back in 2016. And the longer I'm here, the more I just want to encourage everybody, from board members to staff members to parents, to understand that there is kind of a process to go through with communication. You should all have, did I give everybody a copy? Okay, just, so, you know, there's a phrase I like to say, and I know the admin team has heard it several times, and that is, we need to keep the monkey on the right back. And when the monkey jumps too many backs up, it's just another thing that needs to go through the proper channels, because this is kind of the expectation. So I just wanted to share this and understand that in order to help you as volunteers with time management, and in order to help with problem solving, in order to help with simple questions, that you have a copy of this, and if you need to tell somebody, that's a great question, and here's where it needs to start. And again, like I said, keep the monkey on the right back, and then it may eventually get back to you anyway, but there's a lot of responsible people in between an initial question, request, concern, and the principal, the board member, myself, and it's kind of a system that values time and values everyone's time. And sometimes those questions can be answered right at the level one that the board approved so many years ago. So I would just encourage you to keep this in mind, that's all. Just kind of a reminder. I do have a legislative update. Well, not really. I have legislative chaos, but you know, I had an opportunity to share those financial slides that I showed you at the last board meeting with each faculty group that wanted to attend at both buildings, because part of my commitment to transparency is to let everybody know what's going on. I think decisions can be managed better, and reactions can be managed better if people don't feel like there's unknowns. So I thought they were very productive. It was well attended at the elementary school, the high school and junior high. We've got so doggone many activities going on, and so many people are committed that those that could were there, and those that had obligations couldn't be. But I did share that. I don't think on the slideshow that I showed you, at that point they weren't talking about a 2% across the board reduction in all funding, which would include the Department of Education. And that does throw another wrench in the plans as we try to plan to the tune of about $56,000. And that's where that potential $192,500 in all worst case scenarios. We know what we'll lose with student reduction. We don't know if they're going to do away with the high density at-risk funding, which was 30-some thousand. We don't know if this 2% across the board will go. So until they get their world figured out, we can't figure out ours. So it's just a waiting game. I had a meeting today with the Ferris Memorial Committee, and they have had a table constructed. Sorry, I'm not really much for Photoshop. That was the best I could do.
Oh,
So Mrs. Flynn and the committee and I met over what they would really, at Metner Field, what they would really like to do is have the memorial table installed over there. They think it will be used more, they think more people will have an opportunity to see it. And what we are proposing, and it's not a board thing, but I just wanted you to be aware of what's going on. If you see that, where that Y is in that kind of semicircle, this obviously Google Maps isn't up to date because it doesn't show the current table that's there right now. But what they would like to do, and they would take care of the cost of any concrete, would be put about a 10-foot radius semicircle next to the concrete in between the two benches and put the memorial table for Mrs. Ferris there. And it was kind of fleshed out while we were there. If more things like this come, if the table is kind of a memorial that has any other interest, there's a space between the next two, I don't know if I can get my mouse in there, between these two benches here, there could be a table here, there could be some tables down here. I know when I try to sit at this table at a football game, you can't. And I understand from the past, when there's tailgating and other things that go on prior to games, the seating would be well appreciated. So I think it's a great idea. We measured it out. They're going to get concrete costs and construction costs, and Mr. Lang and his students are going to maybe have an opportunity to do some grade work, some concrete framing work, some rebar work, and some flat work, and maybe they can learn a little about finishing concrete as well.
wonderful.
Yeah, so I was excited about that, and I think it'll be well received. It's a great place for it. The next thing on my list is the evaluation tool. We currently use a system called McCrell. I will tell you, from a personal standpoint, I don't like the system. It's very cumbersome. I don't think it's user-friendly. I don't think it allows for good dialogue. I don't know what the staff thinks. This is just my opinion. What I'm looking at is costs. That system costs us $2,040 a year. And there are systems out there that are no cost. Greenbush has developed a state-approved teacher evaluation system that doesn't cost a thing. There's a KSDE evaluation tool called Keep, and I could not find today if there is a cost associated with that. I have shared the Greenbush teacher evaluation with the admin team, and this is again just an FYI. It's not a part of negotiations. The evaluation tool is not a part of the negotiated agreement, but I am planning on getting input from either BLTs or at our next district leadership team meeting to show them these others. Unless there's just some huge fans of McCrell, there's a couple $1,000s we don't need to spend. As I said, Greenbushes has been vetted by the state and has approved evaluation tools. So when I say I'm looking at everything, I'm really trying to look at everything. So that will be a DLT discussion, and if we make that change, again, it's an FYI deal. It's not a part of negotiations, and it's. My next item is security cameras and servers. Our security system is dated, to say the least, very cumbersome and hard to work with. We're currently running on Windows 7 system, and I'm not a techie guy, but I think that was a few generations ago as far as operating systems. So we have issues with them, and at the end of this year, Windows 7 won't be supported anymore by our cameras operating system. So we have worked with a pre-approved vendor through Greenbush, looking at 2 servers to update our camera systems. They're about $23,000 for the entire package. This does fall under an ESSER allowable security thing, so you can track students if you need to, look at separation should we get another backlash. And so I just wanted to share with you as we get a hard invoice and have some good information, and probably at the next board meeting I will submit that to you. ESSER works in as such that you have to have the expenditure, and then you get the reimbursement back. You can't draw down the money prior to, and they won't just write you a check to manage. So we would need to show the purchase, and then we could submit for reimbursement from ESSER funding. The other thing that this company provides, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. White, they were talking about a 1-year service type contract. They also take care of most of the functions that we currently pay FileSafe for. That's an aggravation a lot of times because for them to drive here, it's a $194 trip charge. This company doesn't charge trip charges, and they do have service contracts, and it's not a bill for every call situation. So we're investigating that, and we have a pretty good feel for it, but this will probably be on the agenda next month for an approval to upgrade our server systems. Now, something that's been really fun, and I've spoken about it many times, is we got our February gas bill. It is $16,800 and $833. So let me back up to here and tell you, K-Jump is a KASB consortium that works with utilities, and we're a member of K-Jump, and they kind of represent us, if you will, as they negotiate for prices for utilities. Symmetry is the gas company themselves. So what happened in this huge apocalyptic thing in February, and I always laugh and say most Kansans looked out at that weather and said, well, we probably need a jacket today. But it was a tremendous jump. And I think I shared with you either in Friday notes that Shawnee Mission School District got a gas bill for $1.4 million. KCI Airport was $1.2 million. The Shawnee Mission bill was 3 years of annual budget for natural gas in 1 month. So I actually, believe it or not, was kind of happy with the number that we have. You can see what happened to the MMBTU, the million, man, I had this memorized. The per million British thermal unit, thank you. Whatever that means. It's like a gallon of gas, you know. So you can see the prices just for the last 3 months and how they jumped to $17.88 per BTU. We have a couple of options with this, and this really does need some thought, and we have until May 11 to make this decision. We can pay this bill. There's a lot of concern out there about price gouging, about what gas did they deliver. Did they deliver gas that was already in the line and just raise the price on it? We can pay it in full and get a 5% discount. We can negotiate with Symmetry for a 6-month payout on this, because you can see December and January's bills, $3,500, $2,700. It's a little bit of a bump to $16,000. There is another thing that KASB is sponsoring, and that is to jump into a legal process on this thing. The legal fees are based on your student count. Our particular legal fee would be $400, up to $1,650 for the biggest district in the state. What that will help them do is their legal team, they have a utility lawyer. They'll confirm, the first phase, they'll confirm that goods and services were provided as on the invoice. They'll collect everyone's bill for analysis, and they'll develop a payment and protest letter specific to each district. And they'll also make sure they don't shut our gas off if we join this and don't pay our bill. The second phase of this legal thing would be to defend or respond to any action at the individual pool or association level. They're trying to figure out if there was any ill will or gouging or taking advantage of the situation. The last phase would be to file a class action lawsuit against Symmetry Gas. At that point, they're going to ask for more legal fees, and that could get pretty spendy. So
I like 5% discount.
That amounts to about $840, if I remember right, that would come off of that. We currently have the funds and can just pay this bill, and then just gets us on down the road. But guess what? It's over $10,000. I can't spend it without your authority. It's a very convoluted, suspicious finger-pointing situation right now. We just got this bill. I have a stamped copy here somewhere. We just got this bill this week, no, last week, middle of last week for February. And so they have kind of maybe drugged their feet a little bit releasing this information because they knew the backlash was going to be tremendous. We have weekly Zooms with the K-Jump group at KASB. That's enlightening. But that's where we are right now. We can authorize payment in full and take that 5% discount and move ahead.
I move that's what we do.
David?
Well, you won't know anything more in the next 30 days if we hold to the next meeting. It's not really gonna lay out much info, is it?
No, because May 11 is the date when you need to decide if you're going to join the legal team. Our meeting will be May 10. So what we would still do is decide, do you want to jump in with that group and see what happens?
I guess I thought you said that bill's due the 11th too, right? Or not?
Oh, the bill's due the 15th of this month, I believe.
This month.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. I'll second David's motion.
Okay, motion by David, second by John, that we pay the gas bill with the 5% discount. Is there any discussion?
I think the whole thing stinks.
I know. I agree.
So we're just tough on that.
The gas bill went down, why did it go up? It's just a bunch of.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. So is that for your discussion?
Yes,
Okay, okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that we're still, okay, yeah.
It is
I
price
agree.
gouging, it is.
I do not like it, I think that we're getting hosed, but
If they do figure it out.
I don't know how we don't get hosed, I don't know how to fix it.
Fine,
Did we get any money back to figure out that we did get hosed?
that was gonna be my question.
No, we do not.
So it's a roll of the dice right now.
We're just really not big enough to,
Pretty minor compared to what it could have been.
we're just not big enough to go too deep into some legal battles.
Yeah.
I got enough problems that I,
Anything unless you're gonna have a bill.
I shared with you before when we were doing estimates, if there's a hiccup, and this is one of those hiccups, so everything I showed you about our upswing will be, something's gonna be reduced by $16,000 now because of surprises. I just would like to not have any more surprises till the end of the year. I will tell you this, I truly believe our bill is less because Mr. Pittenger and I spent a lot of time at the first of the year reprogramming that EPM system and moving start times later and later and later and making sure it wasn't affecting the building. And he charted every single day what the temperature was at 7 o'clock, what it was at 6:30 or 6 when he got there, how long it took it to get up to temp, and we just kept pushing the windows down to get the most efficiency. My guess is if we would have just been blowing and going like we were at the first of the year, this could have been a $30,000 gas bill. We've seen a lot of reduction and greater efficiency by really monitoring when that needs to be on, when it needs to be off. So kudos to him for tracking that.
Everybody's really saying.
That's
Okay,
all I have.
any more discussion? All right, all in favor? by John, the Institute 298 Board of Education, going to executive session at 8:51 for 15 minutes with the superintendent for the purpose of discussing personnel matters for non-elected personnel, and the Board of Education return to open meeting at 9:06. And the Board of Education conference room, the executive session is required to protect the privacy interests of identifiable individuals. Any discussion? All in favor?